Greetings, everybody. Welcome to the latest TalkingPointz Chatz. I'm here with Dave Michels. Hey, Dave, how you doing?
Good, good.
So, I'm in trouble, and I kind of need your help to talk this through. I posted a blog last week that most of the industry hates and is arguing with me about. Now, I say most of the industry because I'm sensitive to that kind of stuff. But the truth is, as many people have said, I agree with you. Thanks for finally saying this, as people have said crazy. But I compared everything that's
For,
going
for, for, for any one topic, you'll get at least 10 opinions, right?
Exactly right. Put nine guys in a room and you get 15 opinions. That's the story. So I referred to a movie which I saw many years ago. It's one of my favorites actually around marketing called Wag the Dog with Dustin Hoffman and Robert De Niro. And if you haven't seen it, my God, you really need to see it. But the plot of the movie is essentially it's a political a drama where somebody running for office, president, has got caught doing something, and instead of wanting to focus on that story that they got caught, they create a fake war in a fake country that has everybody spinning. And the interesting thing is their competition, the other people running for office, don't say, hey, excuse me, that's a lie, that's fake. They continue to emulate the story. It's like, well, I would handle this war differently, and I would do it this other way, and well, why haven't we brought the troops home yet? So they're all building on this story that, when you go right down to the bottom of it, has no substance. And in that case, it's
No,
completely fake. But
I kept on thinking about that during the recent debates, right? And both parties were guilty of this, but the moderators would ask a very clear, specific question, and the candidate response would be something totally different. And at first, you kind of like, hey, wait a minute, that's not the question. But then when you listen to the response, it's like, oh, wait a minute, I'm not sure I agree with that. And before you know it, you're going down that rabbit hole without even realizing it, and you've completely forgot the original topic.
yeah. So the reason I brought it up is because my preface is that the unified communication industry, people that are doing platforms, that are doing hardware, that are doing everything else, have been completely over-rotated and overly focused on generative AI. Now,
Just a
let me make
little, just a
two
little.
points very clearly before we start. One, I'm a big fan of generative AI. I use it all the time, but I use
What's
it as
not
a
to like?
tool. I use it as a tool that I can put in the right circumstance and I manage it well. But it is not a panacea. It's not changing the industry. And the other point that I'm making is that AI is things that, the machine intelligence, machine learning, there's some tremendous things. The idea of focusing the camera so we don't have to automatically starting meeting, tagging names, all these other things that machine learning can do that are technically AI, but they're not generative AI. We are lost in a wag the dog story, in my opinion, around generative AI. But Zoomtopia last week had a slide up that showed that their AI assistant is 35% better than their competitor's AI assistant. And it's like 35% better. Why? How? What the heck are we talking about? How do you make money from it? And this is part of a larger issue around AI that, Dave, you should probably talk about, because you're following it more closely than I am. That OpenAI and some of the other companies are spending huge amounts of money and huge amounts of power, and they're not making any money, and they have valuations through the roof, and they're losing money every year. No one's monetized this in any way.
You can't say nobody's monetizing it. Certainly OpenAI is monetizing it.
So that with investment, but not actual revenue.
Well, no, they're making plenty of revenue. They're not making profit, but they're making plenty of revenue. I mean, they're definitely monetizing it. But I think, in fact, what you mentioned though about raising investors, they just raised 6.6 billion. I mean, that's new funding. 6.6 billion. That's going to set them at something like $1 trillion company. But to your point, they're burning something like $7 billion a year right now. I mean, I mean, they're nowhere near profitability. And even worse is it looks like the business that they're in is already commoditizing. It's crazy how much traction, how they were able to raise that much money. But they could have raised more if they wanted to. They probably stopped.
Yeah, it's interesting, and I'm an old school guy. I'm a hardware over software guy. I know that world is gone, and there's a lot of other. I really like tangible things, and the problem with the AI that we're dealing with in our industry is it's intangible. There is no metric that how much time I'm saving by using Copilot or by using AI Companion or by using any of the other things that are out there. It's just, yeah, it's probably easier, but that we covered in, and I had to find it because I had to post it as a comment to one of the things the other day in our August Insider Report, which, by the way, if you're not subscribed to it, you absolutely should be. But we were talking about in August that Forbes published a survey that said 97% of CEOs see this as the game changer, changing the world, generative AI. But 77% of workers in the trenches are saying it's making their job harder and more confusing and not really accomplishing anything. So
the other shoe, the other shoe of that conversation.
yes, the other shoe dropped, and that's a wag the dog reference, right?
Oh, old Schumann. Oh my gosh, yes, great reference.
Yeah. So I honestly I would really prefer to see the companies that are doing collaboration and unified communication and contact center and customer experience and all the rest of the pieces of what we do coming out with things that are tangible, that I've made your meeting better, I've made your day better, here's why. It's not here's a summary that you didn't have to write. It's
Well,
wow.
this is a really, really complex topic, and there's so many moving parts here. And so first there's the entire world issue, but if we just narrow our focus to say our communications, enterprise communication sector, there's still a ton of moving parts here going on. And to your point, generative AI has been a good thing. I mean, we're seeing tremendous innovation. We're seeing a lot of changes. Zoomtopia was dominated by generative AI, but even if you go before this year, I mean, just before this month, I should say. But if you go back a little bit, we've seen things like multi-camera in the conference rooms. We're seeing so many AI improvements. I can't even think of them all. Noise reduction, so many things going on. AI is driving the industry, and particularly the contact center is seeing a tremendous amount of improvements and excitement around what this is doing. But to your point is I think that there's too much of a good thing going on. And what is the appropriate amount of excitement? And I mentioned earlier that not only is generative AI kind of commoditizing, but we're also seeing within enterprise communications, it's kind of I feel bad about what's happening in this sector. I feel like it's almost a negative. A few years ago, I could easily tell you the differences between all these different UC and contact center companies, and that was partly based on how they were investing in things differently and how they were envisioning the future differently. But right now, they're all investing in AI, and that's all they're investing in. And we've seen big impacts, big layoffs this year. And partly because they've refocused their energy toward AI, partly because AI is taking all the R&D right now. We know that pretty much every company is saying pretty much the exact same thing, and that was even demonstrated in the recent Gartner Magic Quadrant that I wrote
Yeah,
about.
this is the Magic Quadrant, right? It's going up like that. It did last year, it did this year.
After a full year of monomaniacal investments in AI, we're seeing, the companies are all getting better, but that Magic Quadrant in 2024 looks a hell of a lot like the Magic Quadrant chart in 2023. All ships rising equally, no differentiation. And because they're not talking about anything else, they're opening up, they're reducing the barriers to entry, particularly in contact center. I mean, contact centers always had huge barriers to entry, hardware, ACD skills, queuing skills, the infrastructure required to do contact center. But right now, every contact center company is talking about AI, and lo and behold, every AI company is talking about contact center. And if the customer only thinks that AI matters, they're not going to pay attention to all this core infrastructure that the industry has built over the last 20, 30 years. So too
And
much
I
of a good
think
thing.
yeah, I think that people are starting to build up a desensitivity around the AI story. Excuse me, I spoke with a number of other people, analysts and reporters, media that were covering these events, and they've all kind of said, I was kind of expecting something different. I was kind of expecting to hear, oh, it's just more AI, and there's very little differentiation in the wording. Again, you had one company saying they're X% better than another company. All right, but better at what? What does that mean? Does that mean it's faster? Does that mean it's more accurate? Does that mean, my meetings will improve? It's literally, we're so desensitized to AI, AI, AI. There was another thing that we covered in the Insider a few months ago that said that adding the letters AI to a description is actually lowering its perceived value from consumers right now. And I think, in our industry, unified communication has consumers, it has enterprises, it has IT managers, it has users. And honestly, I'm afraid that the best platforms are coming out with really well designed, great AI, and the customers are saying, it's an AI story. Okay, fine, never
Well,
mind.
that's what I was saying about all these different variables here, because there's also, the belief that we're at the beginning of something big, and so the current AI, you shouldn't judge AI based on the current AI, and that's kind of this thing that's very, very suspicious, right? And so Sam Altman published a manifesto basically called the Intelligence Age, and he's in there saying that AI is going to fix climate issues. It's going to establish space colonies. It's going to discover all kinds of physics and stuff like that. But it doesn't do any of that now, right? And so that's how he was able to raise the 6.6 billion. He's a very good salesman, and he's actually got a huge track record of being a very good salesman and getting investment for companies. That's what he's primarily good at. I mean, he's not a physicist or an AI developer. He's a salesman, and he's selling this future. And the future is great. And a lot of people, a lot of really smart people, smarter than me and maybe smarter than you, David, but people like Bill Gates, people like Satya at Microsoft, two Microsoft people, but really very smart people are buying into this future of how great AI is going to be. Meanwhile, we're dealing with, pretty crappy AI. It still hallucinates. It's really not getting much better than it was a year ago. It's really not doing a whole lot of heavy lifting yet. It was supposed to, decimate and automate lots of different industries. It hasn't really done any of that stuff yet. And so it's really kind of questionable about it kind of, a little deja vu. We kind of been through this before, right? Um, I went through it most recently with cryptocurrency. I guess that was a few years ago, or right around the beginning of the pandemic. We've gone through this with robotics. We've gone through this with nanotechnology. Well, we did it with the whole dot-com craze in the 90s. We get super excited about the future of something, but that future doesn't really ever come. And there's not a lot of evidence to suggest that the future that Sam Altman is talking about is going to come anytime soon.
So one of the things that you and I do for a living is, we provide advice and analysis to a number of companies that are in the space, and I think the advice we're generally giving manufacturers, platform providers, software people is, what's your differentiated argument?
Yes.
Why should I be listening to you? And as soon as you say AI, people will close their ears. What can you say that's different from what everybody else is saying? So it's not just a wag the dog story. So it's something that's unique to you. And unfortunately,
Yeah, it's
we've seen.
complicated because all boats are rising, and so you can't ignore it. If you want to be part of the tide,
Right.
you have to invest and you have to do this. I think the answer is to be a fast follower. I think the best way to respond right now for a lot of these companies is to not try to innovate in AI, just understand that all boats are rising and to be a fast follower. That's my thoughts.
Yeah, no, and I would agree with that. But I would also say that, the AI arguments we're hearing are, ours is cheaper. You have to pay for it with the other guys. You don't have to pay for it with us. We're hearing ours is better, but better is a subjective term, and we don't know what that means. We're hearing, we had AI before anybody else. We invested in the company that was bringing the chips on board, and our experience matters. None of these are differentiated stories. They're all, a spin on the same thing. And I would love somebody to come out and say at one of these events we attend, we've got AI, we've got great AI. The first three breakout sessions are about that. Now let me talk to you about where the industry is going. And that's an opportunity that, unfortunately, so far no one in the industry is taking.
That is an incredible opportunity, and the other shoe of that is to also invest in other things. And that's why I say you have to be a fast follower, because if you're going to try to be a leader, it's going to take your entire budget. It's going to suck up everything. But if you be a fast follower, it's going to cost less, and that will allow you to again focus on what you do best and how you differentiate, build some competitive barriers, build some competitive moats. And those moats could be technical, they could be channels, they can be the pricing model. It could be all kinds of different things. And so, but right now, no one's talking about anything but AI.
Yeah. So I guess what all the people that were knocking on me the last week or so after I put that blog on, I'll put a link in it here so you guys can read it on the Talking Points website. But the what everybody was telling me is let's talk again in a year, let's talk again in 2 years, let's see where we are in 2 years. So let's come back a year from now. You know, it's October 24. Let's talk again in October 25 and see if any of the manufacturers or platform providers or companies in the space have taken the initiative to differentiate their story, or if it's still just my AI is better than your AI, my AI is cheaper than your AI. I'm hoping somebody sees that it's time to start to break away from the pack and really manage the narrative.
Well, I'll do you one better. We can go back a year earlier, and I have no idea where I was writing it. I don't know if we'll find links or not, but the conversation has already dramatically changed. And again, particularly in the contact center, I would say at Enterprise Connect 23, which was a year and a half ago. Everybody left that conference with AI as the future. Agents are doomed. Contact center agents are doomed, et cetera. And then Enterprise Connect 24, we had contact centers in every single main stage keynote, which was a first. But not one of them was displacing contact center agents. The conversation had already kind of downsized a bit to a little bit more reality, and I think it's going to continue to downsize. And I think that the expectations are very, very high now. But I want to emphasize, and you said this already, generative AI is doing some good stuff. It really is, and companies do need to be investing in it. But it's more of an incremental at this point. It's more of an incremental technology than a disruptive technology.
Yeah, and I would just add to that a little piece that, as somebody who's been in, this industry for 4 decades, when I hear a company going on and on and on about AI, what that's telling me, unfortunately, is they don't have another story. And that's that people are starting to make that conclusion as well. They're tuning out. So I hope we'll do great things. It's a terrific tool. Like I've said for decades, a hammer is a great tool. I would never go out to a site where I'm doing construction if I didn't have the hammer in my toolkit. But if the job is to put up a window, it's the wrong tool. You need
Yeah,
something
or when the
to
contractor
play.
says, "Give me the job because I have a hammer," it's like that's the wrong sales pitch.
Exactly. So hopefully the tool will find its place. Companies will differentiate themselves and will stop having this wag the dog overhype on AI. And I pray that organizations will listen to us about this because I don't want to be in the middle of a hype storm. There is no winner ultimately. It all comes crashing down. It's a house of cards. So let's see where this goes over the next year or two.
Very good. All right, good conversation.
Thanks for joining us. We'll see you on the next one.